This special address is by the Chief Cybertech and Chairman of James Law Cybertecture International, which is a global consultancy specializing in design and strategy formation of cybertecture projects. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Mr. James Law.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My talk today is entitled A Bold Beginning, a Cybertecture for a New Urbanity. And I start off with this idea that we really are not aware of ourselves, that the greatest piece of architecture is the one that we are actually sitting on and living on and spending our lives on, and that's our planet. Every city contains every person on this planet, and we have this incredible responsibility to design it well. I think I come from one of the world's most densest cities, which is Hong Kong, but I believe that possibly one of the solutions to our future is called superdensity. So the architecture of the future can have this superdensity if we take on board the properties of nature. And I use the planet Earth as an example here in my sketch, where I try to create a structure, a megastructure for 40,000 people that tries to have all of the good aspects of our planet. Clean air, clean water, freedom of movement. I know it sounds very utopian, and I, for one, don't dare to say that it is necessarily the right way. But if our future cities is about having the opportunity to create something truly good for people, we may need to experiment, we may need to be brave, and we may need to take some risks and attempt at looking at these alternative solutions. It is all about people. Thank you very much.
Architecture and Design Summit 2013, Mumbai. Moderating this panel, Dr. Rupinder Singh, Dean, Sushant School of Architecture.
I'm going to start with you, sir. How is design, your developers' demand on design is changing?
Difference in design is a way of life now. The aspiration of customers, be it residential, corporate, small office, they are all world-trotting. They are having exposure to the best of the buildings of the world, and the difference in design is a necessary. The point I'm driving is the difference in design is a very much necessary because of the type of buildings which we are building. They are not really existing earlier. And when you want to benchmark your buildings with the best of the world building, you need expertise of world to be roped in. And developer with the principal architect, being a partner, really need to coordinate. And one of the very big thing which in Mumbai comes is DC regulation, approvals. So with all these consultants in, a developer really need to look into that it fits into the approved plan. So the design difference is very, very necessary because corporates, the MNCs, the best of the worlds who really want to come in and occupy our space, and our space must be, adequate or equivalent to what they really use. I really advocate that the best way is to really rope in the best of the world and achieve a difference in design.
See, what I think the difference is when what you're saying is because there's always been the idea of notion of consultancy in design, right? You bring a landscape consultant. And there's always also the idea of shrinkage of design space in terms of, say, skyscrapers, where the structure engineer takes over so much that this. But there's here the idea of fracturing of design inputs, and one worries about the notion of goodness or vision. And maybe I'm still nostalgic or romantic in this sense. So I was going to ask you, how does one approach goodness of design where this fracturing of almost corporatization or conglomeration of design approach is happening?
I think it's all about detailing. Detailing starts with, firstly, the owner, the builder himself being knowledgeable, educated, well-bred himself. It starts from that. And then he decides to go to a designer who thinks can execute those ideas. Projects that I saw that was successful was all about detailing. It need not be necessarily about using expensive materials or getting the best designers on board. But the attitude of wanting to look into the minutest aspect of design, which starts from architecture, landscape design, interior design, lighting design, the services, the comfort with which the end user uses that space, whether it's his elevator movement or his shower experience, with the right water pressure being there. So this is not easy. As a designer, we do take the efforts towards giving all these ideas on paper, but unless it is executed by the real estate developer, the builder himself, it doesn't happen because it involves a huge amount of labor and time even from his side. They need serious project management skills within the company to do that. So projects that had an overall approach to design were the ones that I saw them being more successful over an average builder in the immediate vicinity. It's seen all over the country.
Let's move to the next point, and I was going to ask you, Vijay, to take that on, because I think that is another point which is close to my heart, is that India is not going to survive without the tier 2, tier 3 development. And what I'd say in my classes is that you can take every major city in the world, and I usually draw them a slide with it, Paris, New York, everything, and you can reproduce that in India in next 20 years, I would still have people left to urbanize. Absolutely. So, and there is no way anybody is surviving without the tier 2, tier 3 towns making it big. And so this is the tipping point. So I'm sure your experience here would...
the tier 2, tier 3 cities, coming to tier 2, tier 3 cities, the design is a challenge. For simple reason that the construction cost, unlike metros, which hover between say 2 to 5,000, depending on project to project, there the construction cost will typically be 1,200 to 1,500. You take Jaipur, you take Goa, you take Pune. Most of the time, developers, unless they're making a tower of 40 floors, 30 floors, most of them will talk about 1,200 to 1,500, 1,700 maximum, because they got to sell at 2,500 to 3,500 band. So the effort that goes into creating a good master plan and design is much more. One, each 100 rupee will count, because at 2,500, his percentage of 100 rupee is much more than in Mumbai, a Mumbai developer who sells at 30,000 to 40,000. Even 1,000 rupees is less in terms of percentage. And 1,000 rupees can get you a lot more, finish, facade, whatever. But still, it doesn't mean that if he's challenged by the cost, still there's so many good development that you see around in smaller towns. I was recently in Cochin, great designs, and even way to Punjab. But Bangalore builders or developers are doing great job. I'm very impressed by Ahmedabad. Again, in the same price band. Ahmedabad, I find, is one of the cheapest cities. Very affordable. Indore is very affordable. Bhopal is affordable. But Ahmedabad, you get very good design, and yet at a very reasonable rate. Its design is more about two passionate people coming together. The developer, who has to have the passion to create a good project, and the architect, he should find an architect who's as passionate to do the project. And there's no way even tier 2, tier 3, or maybe tier 4, tomorrow we come with another definition of, say, Dhulia, which is tier 4. There's no reason why these two passionate people cannot create a good project.
This leads to the next, the simple point of the correlation which I think every developer faces between real estate prices and goodness of design. I still think goodness is yet to be properly defined. So to say what you think is the correlation, in some sense, which is already said that the more expensive it gets, the easier it actually gets to do it.
We all know the basic things. Goodness is, of course, quality, good layouts, good planning, good materials, good safety, good. We all know what is good. But what I find is really necessary in this country, and what is very difficult for us to achieve is, in the urban design space. And we have a lot of baggage from architectural schools coming in. Architectural schools don't teach this subject. They're still teaching what, the Bauhaus thinking, Walter Gropius to Corbusier. Everybody is stuck in that time frame. And there's nothing which is moved beyond that. So this urban design has not been understood, that how cities tick and how cities work. We have to, really shout from the rooftop. People just don't understand that you build a building in New York, in London, in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, in Singapore, you don't build car parks. Not that because you don't want to build car parks, you're not allowed to build car parks. When I raise this, he says, how can you stop somebody from buying a car? It's his birthright. But you don't build cities for automobiles. And here the development regulations are changing, where they are actually triple the number of car parks which you need to build. And car parks are today costing us 2,000 rupees a square foot construction cost. And that is being loaded on the selling price as per the Supreme Court order. You can't sell it separately. So, the cost increase is stupendous. They've just made things crazy. So whole thinking and attitude in this country is, they don't understand how cities function. And we are not, it's called a $1 a gallon gasoline architecture. When you build a suburban sprawl, we cannot afford that. We have to build congestion even in a tier 2 town. There has to be a downtown, there has to be congestion. You cannot give everybody in India a villa.
So this leads to, what are your takes on the idea of this?
I'll just tell you. I was fortunate enough to have been totally associated with the development of Gurgaon, of almost around 35,000 acres, and seen the development happening in Mumbai. So we started precisely 35, 36 years back with a horizontal kind of a growth. Space constraints were not there. The design is only how to look beautiful. The aesthetics were there. Car 1, 2, 3, any number of cars you want, you can park it. Now we have traveled from horizontal growth to the vertical growth because the space has literally shrank everywhere, especially in places like Mumbai. Like you have virtually no space to really go for a horizontal expansion. So what to do? So when you go vertical, then vertical means the aspirations are same. Even in horizontal growth, I wanted a retail, I wanted this, I wanted that. Now there I had a place of almost around, say, 1 million or 2 million square feet of area. Now I've got only 1 million square foot to call it a township. Earlier, 100 acre used to be a township. Now 20 acre is a township. So whatever I was doing in 100 acres, people want me to do it in 20 acres. So same thing, now that is an intelligent drawing. That's an intelligent concept that has come into play. So similarly, you see, when the revolution is taking place, we must be able to, accept this thing, and the government regulation should also be accepting it. When I go for an innovative kind of a design, I come back with a lot of changes the government wants me to do because the DC plan do not permit me, this do not permit me, this do not permit me. Ultimately, I am coming back to the conventional style. And then I am trying to sacrifice the challenge between the built up and the open spaces. I go vertical. In process, what I do is, I'm literally playing with my natural resources which are available to everybody. So again, we go vertical, so we forget about everything. We just go keep on adding number of floors. The technology development, what we say is, okay, instead of conventional, I'll go with aluminum, I'll go with a tunnel form or an S form. My only thing is speed. You see, in 10 days, I need to complete a floor, or 20 days, I have to complete this thing. End of the day, I am sacrificing the basic moral values of the urban design. So this is where the challenge lies with all the architects, and a very, very strong partnership that you require with the developer and the architect, how to do it. Like that's a very healthy partnership we are looking for. It is not only in terms of design, in terms of the government regulations as well. We must have a uniform kind of a system, a very simple kind of a regulation which you and me can understand. We need to go through all DP plans, we need to go through all details, and still there's something we leave in between the lines, and there we are caught. So that is why there is a delay in accepting all those things. So all these things, and at the same time, I want a very, very economical cost. I want a house at a very economical price.
Let's do the first part. I am still I'm cynical, but I'm still optimistic. I don't know how that works, but so let's hear that last part. Yeah, I mean, I work with students, and you have to be optimistic. So let's hear your.
According to me, seeing the whole conversation by all seniors around, all developers, I think the zone should be divided where the FSI is allotted according to that, and where there are parking issues, then there is infrastructure which is not supporting the buildings or the construction happening. I think there should be a segregation saying that this is a low income group, high income group, middle income group, LIG, MIG, HIG, what we call it, and accordingly the services needs to be provided, infrastructure according to that. Once we divide the zone, I would say that it's the duty of a developer and an architect to understand whatever zone they are looking at, the planning of the building, the simplicity. When we talk about LIG, it needs to be easy to maintain, all those things. So over the ages, Mr. B-tier cities, which we talking about, Mr. Mirchandani was talking about, it needs to be after 30 years, 40 years, building is standing back where we have put the construction cost and all those things which was up to the mark required, not excess, where the maintenance would pitch the end user.
There's something I was hearing you say which raises the point that we were discussing about what my another fascination is, which is the dead mall in India, where when you look at Gurgaon, almost 80% of malls in Gurgaon have 50% vacancy. And it is simply an act of capitalism. It's an excellent exercise in looking at capitalism from a Marxist point. It's like too much got built, and now nobody manages to survive. So, but you had a point like that.
So bulk of the mall today coming and answering your specific question is happened because most of those malls are strata sale, where people have sold it. I think the one has to realize that a retail real estate development and real estate development are two different very, very different
ball
game altogether, because here you're not selling anything. And if you want to be successful in the center, you have to own it yourself, because at the end of the day, there are various retailers who have to be operating there and who have to succeed. And you have various retailers who have different propensity to pay you. So you may have a coffee shop who pays you 50 rupees, but you may have a brand who pays you 200 rupees. You are working on an average game. But if you give it on a strata sale, for that owner, maximization of the rent is the only objective. So I think so the biggest story of this mall's failing, if you ask me, has been one, the strata sale, two, the euphoria that anything and everything would sell, and at one time rents went through the roof as if there was no tomorrow. But then I guess it was a correction which was bound to happen. So coming back to the core subject, I think so going forward, I think there is a need to be working very, very closely to understand. I think one has to understand that retail in India is very different from retail in Singapore, retail in Dubai, or the propensity of the people to pay, the level of well-being in those countries are very, very different in our country. Till today, the per capita spend in India still remains very, very low. So there is a need to tweak more so with the land costs going up, approval periods getting extended, constructions getting delayed. To make this a viable venture, I think so there is a very, very strong need to work with the architecture.
And this is something you can only have learned out of the last 5 years.
Yes, I think the last 5 years have been a tremendous learning for all of us also.
I see a PhD thesis there.
It's been a tremendous learning for us also. We have today six shopping centers and in different age group and in different demographics. And we are seeing the difference which is so evident. And I mean, it's every day the learning.
So what I'm hearing is completely segues into your point, and I'm hoping you're going to help us close this, is the idea of changing development typologies.
Yeah, I'm going to talk really about Delhi because I know Delhi. It's my city. I think a lot of issues may be common with other cities also. Now, more than 50% of Delhi today happens to be divided between unauthorized colonies, slums, and urban villages. All three are the undoing of the city. In all these areas, there is no sanitation. Electrical supply is really dangerous. There is no proper air and ventilation. And these places are disasters. The living conditions are absolutely deplorable. Second issue with Delhi is that there's rampant commercialization because Delhi has not achieved its target for creating commercial spaces as what should have been as a part of the city plan. So obviously, it needs to come out somewhere. So residences have become commercial. All this compounded with parking problems, encroachments is the same story that goes everywhere. What I want to say over here is that looking at this entire scenario, it is time for, I think, the developers' lobby to come together and really push the government for a quantum change in its attitude, in its policies, and take all this burden away from the civic authorities because they're not able to perform anyways. Now, what I feel, it may be like a utopian dream, but I think all these large tracts of land like the urban villages or a large unauthorized colony or whatever, these are large areas, They don't go into 15 or 20 acres, they go into 200, 300, 400 acres, And I think they need to be taken up as large projects where the people who occupy that area could be stakeholders, they could be shareholders. And using them and putting a whole policy together of how you can redevelop and re-enhance the entire area while respecting the spirit of a community, the heritage value that may be there, and any other local cultural issues that may be there. But keeping those in mind, because you don't want to just superimpose a blueprint from Singapore or New York or wherever. You have to look at the socio-cultural situation that exists, which I think we would understand the best, both the developer and the architect. Amalgamation is where this whole thing comes from. Now, amalgamation, interestingly, is there on the cards as a part of master plan, but nobody knows how to do it. Nobody knows, if you ask a question, nobody has an answer. So, what it is and how to do it. So, I think it would be a great idea if the developers lobby could come, because I think all the expertise exists over there, and come together and put forward a viable method of achieving this. So, instead of looking at outer areas and new developments, let's look inwards. Let's look at what we can do to improve where we are actually.
See, I think where we've come to is that the idea of difference here engages design with many facets. And I hear a lot of saying that we are not the West. I'll tell you, it'll be great if we do what the West does, solve problems. I don't care where we are and what we are. If you want to ape success, we've got to solve our problems. And I think there's enough bandwidth here, to use a word, that we can put together solve this problem. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take a short moment to thank each one of you for making this event a grand success. I would like to start with thanking our advisory board members and eminent speakers who not only shared their views on changing dynamics of Indian architectures vis-a-vis global scenario, they also have given rightfully needed direction to align the industry with fast-paced developments. I thank you for bringing such wealth of knowledge and experience on board. I also want to thank all our partners for the constant support and guidance, especially Somali Ceramics, who believed in our vision and aspiration for this community and collaborated with our initiative and took this initiative to a different level. It brings me a great sense of pride on being associated with partners like you all. Thank you.